The New York Football Giants will kick off the Jaxson Dart era on Sunday, 4:05, hosting the visiting LA Chargers. What does it mean for Sunday and a chance to win? How do we expect this team to look different, especially on offense? All that and so much more coming up next. Yes, my friends. It's OGP, the One Giant Podcast, where you know that we are your hosts over here, Adam Armbrecht, over there, Andrew Makowitz. We're healthy, we're wealthy, we're wise, and we are certainly excited in a way that we weren't in the first handful of games of this season, as Jaxson Dart will make his debut. How are you, Andy, sir? And how are we feeling about week 4, not week 5, against the Saints, is when we will see the debut of our rookie QB.
I've been focused on golf the last 24, 48 hours with the Ryder Cup going on so far. Even as we're recording this, it has not looked very good for the USA. They need to mount a tremendous comeback. So I was hoping there would be a little positivity earlier in the weekend. There's not yet. But as you said, looking forward to this week for the Giants. It is exciting because we are turning over a new leaf. And it feels like, it's like kind of the night before Christmas where there's the eternal optimism about the team when you bring in a new quarterback. Like maybe this is the catalyst the team needs to change it over. But that could quickly change about 15, 20 minutes into the game when you're like, if this doesn't work out, like where do we go next, right?
Saving all the positive vibes for Sunday. That's really what I take away from it. And also golf. You know what I mean? Who cares? But you're right. It's like there's the potential of, and I guess to use your analogy, you wake up on Christmas morning, you race downstairs, and you find out they didn't get the bicycle, right? It's just a bunch of build-a-blocks, and they say, hey, you're gonna have fun. You can actually build your own bicycle. It won't pedal, but you can look at it, and it'll be pretty. Yeah, I think that's obviously what happens when you move on to the next franchise quarterback, when you bring in the rookie in Jaxson Dart. We went through the same experience with Daniel Jones. It didn't work out, but when you feel like there's the potential, it gives you a much longer run. That's, I think, two things I wanted to focus on here. First is the why of it and whether or not, because I had a little blurb over on our Substack and through the podcast feed talking about this a little bit, but I wanted to get where you stand on going to Jaxson Dart, what it means for Brian Daboll, what it means for the franchise. What I will notice for you to respond to is that I thought it was very clear when they made this move to Jaxson Dart ahead of a game against the Chargers, which have one of the best defenses right now in the NFL. The only thing that stopped Brian Daboll from starting Jaxson Dart week 1 was Andrew Thomas and his health. If he had been 100% healthy, I believe that he would have been the starter week 1. I think that this is the quarterback that Brian Daboll pushed for. We saw the behind the scenes, right? Joe Schoen saying, hey, you did your research, you did your due diligence. No one's going to care about a second round pick if you're right. They went and got the guy. And with his job on the line, I believe that Brian Daboll throughout training looked at Jaxson Dart and said, this is the guy that gives me the best chance to win games. Doesn't mean it would have been pretty to start, but I think he would have gone with the rookie if not for the fact that the franchise left tackle was coming off of surgery.
Yeah, I mean, so a couple things can be true. I do think that is an important.
Only one thing can be true.
Sorry. Oh, you want only one thing, and it's the thing that Adam's saying, which is no Andrew Thomas, no Jaxson Dart. That was pretty much how Daboll was thinking about it.
And by the way, Andrew Thomas will be getting the full reps this week. Like they said, he's 100% go. He played 25 snaps in week number 3, coming back off of that injury.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Giants approached the offseason, obviously signing Jameis Winston first, having Tommy DeVito there, and then they signed Russell Wilson. I think Art Stapleton has made sure that everyone knows a few times, like, the timeline matters. They didn't know that they were going to get Jaxson Dart, so they brought Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and just have a competent quarterback room, right? Like, that was kind of the impetus of how we got here. Going into all of this, Adam, thought that Jaxson Dart wouldn't be starting until at least week 10 or 11. The team is kind of 3-6, and that's when you bring in Jaxson Dart. But I think, as you can tell, Brian Daboll is just fed up with the play at quarterback. And you look at the Washington game, Russell Wilson was getting sacked left and right. And he kind of said, well, that's the reason why Andrew Thomas isn't out there. Our offensive line isn't fixed. We don't want to throw the rookie out there and get him shell-shocked. you see that the Cowboys defense is absolutely terrible against both the Giants and every other team that they play. So, watching Russell Wilson throw moonballs all day to Malik Neighbors gave Giant fans something to cheer about for a day. But then reality sets back in when you watch that Kansas City Chiefs game. And I genuinely believe that Brian Daboll was watching Russell Wilson chuck balls out of the back of the end zone in third and fourth down to go situations where you just have to make a play. And I bet you, Adam, in the back of his mind, he's like, at least Jaxson Dart would try to make a play here instead of throwing the ball out of the end zone on fourth down. Those are the types of decisions and decision making that I think Jaxson Dart is going to be a little bit different and bring something else to the table that Russell Wilson just doesn't bring at this point in his career.
Yeah, of course. Look, I think everybody is that Russell Wilson, doesn't have the mobility he once did. He's not the dual threat kind of quarterback. You still saw him run week over week, right? And I think you bring up the red zones, like it's the willingness to, and by the way, to their own detriment sometimes, right? I mean, Daniel Jones did this a couple of seasons ago and almost had his neck snapped off, right? And ended up having real issues when he was willing to go for it in the red zone down by the goal line. So self-preservation maybe kicked in for Russell Wilson. That can be true. I also think that again, because I think my narrative holds weight. I also believe that the Giants, what I find curious is what is your intention around the play calling and what are your expectations, right? Because there's a number here that I find concerning when we think about what will Jaxson Dart and how will he impact the game. And I think it's going to be like a both and. I think that he's obviously more athletic than Russell Wilson at this stage. He's obviously a true dual threat quarterback, and you can expect the Giants to use his leg, especially down around the red zone. But I'll start with there's some stats here that I want to get your reaction to. We are talking before we started, and you said the red zone, 1 for 8, whatever those numbers. Okay, great. But estimated points added, the EPA in the red zone this season for the NFL. Right? The Giants have run 34 plays, and they've run 25 of them in 11 personnel. I'm going to give you a couple of teams in terms of their EPA that you might say, hey, near the back end of the NFL, right? If I said like Jacksonville Jaguars, they've been kind of up and down. They're minus 6.3. Houston Texans have struggled mightily to start this season, minus 6.59. See, like Carolina Panthers only is 2.53. They're doing some decent things there. The Dallas Cowboys, for as potent as their offense is and as bad as their defense is, minus 8.32. With all of those numbers in your head, Andy, what do you think the Giants' number is in the red zone, 25 plays running out of 11 personnel?
I couldn't even give you a proper guess. I don't even know what it possibly could be.
Because you could never think that the 31st ranked team is the Dallas Cowboys on 18 plays and 11 personnel in the red zone, minus 8.32 EPA. The Giants, minus 19.78. They more than double the next worst team in the league. And the reason why I bring it up is that running out of 11 personnel for them, it's a fickle thing. Formations matter. And whether or not you choose to run or pass out of those formations matter. And we can get into some more numbers here that I was looking over when it comes to primary personnel sets that the Giants and most run out of 11 personnel, 12 personnel, right? So I'm curious about the play calling, the formations combined with having Jaxson Dart to make sure that you get the most value out of it. So I put this to you. Do you think that that Brian Daboll has secretly been like holding certain plays and certain packages that he wants to unveil when he has Jaxson Dart in there versus giving, and it's not giving Russell Wilson the best chance, but going 100% from snap one, week one to start the year? Because in the end, we all kind of saw what the results were. It looks like we should have known, and maybe Brian Daboll knew that Russell Wilson wasn't going to be the for long, right? I just find it fascinating because if you go by the numbers and what they've done through 3 weeks, there's still stats that tell you, yeah, even with Jaxson Dart, if the play calling is crap, the results are still going to be crap, right? Or you're going to put Jaxson Dart in a really bad spot to potentially go hurt himself.
Well, I think it's not as stark of a difference, but I'm sure that the Baltimore Ravens, when they drafted Lamar Jackson and were playing Joe Flacco in front of him, were able to open up the playbook and have different plays for a different type of quarterback, especially when the field gets so condensed in the red zone or the gold zone. Like those situations, it really does matter the play calling. To your point, I think Jaxson Dart gives you another layer of ability to call different plays in that scenario. I mean, Adam, you talked about all of those numbers. The Giants are ranked 31st in red zone scoring percentage touchdown wise. They cannot score when they get in the red zone. And so, watching Russell Wilson not be able to see anybody open and just dumping the ball out of the back of the end zone ends the play every single time. It is one dimensional for the Giants. If there is the ability to have a run pass option with Jaxson Dart, or him to extend the play with his legs to be able to run for a touchdown, or for him to extend his play so that Theo Johnson can get open. It feels like to me the Giants were fed up with how inside it filled play in the red zone because of Russell Wilson's deficiency.
Yeah, yeah, like, yeah, and yes, so I agree with you, and it's really just it's to point out that in the end, the offense has not been very good for a couple of years, right? Like, that Cowboy game, mirage in the desert aside, it hasn't been good, and it can't just be. And no, when we see Daniel Jones playing in Indy, right? Like, now there's these samples that go, Okay, if you are the guru, if you're the guy that can figure these things out, then now's the time to execute." Some other things that I found interesting, we talk about out of that 11 personnel, the Giants run on 89 plays out of a total 140. It's about 64% of their plays have come out of 11 personnel. But again, and this is where actually I think something that directly will be impacted by Jaxson Dart being in this game, they run, they pass out of that formation almost 62% of the time, 8% of league average. So one of the things that I think the Giants have been over the start of the season is very predictable, right? Like, if we're in a run formation, it's going to be a run formation. If we're in 11 personnel and it's a pass play, traditional 3 wide receivers, tight end, running back, like, you can kind of know where this is going to go. The only time that it looked like they can't stop us against Dallas, and the only reason that was is because it was not only a bad defense, it's also injured secondary. And you're just throwing deep balls. Well, that's great, but you're asking guys to beat players one-on-one, use their speed. How do you see them adjusting the way that they want Jaxson Dart to be successful early? Because I look directly at a guy like Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, don't get me wrong, but we're going to talk about neighbors here. I look at Wan'Dale Robinson and the underneath passes. He's always been very good at getting open in those regards. And then I do think about Malik Neighbors and saying, well, it can't be the fourth quarter when we get him the football. I expect end arounds. I expect jet sweeps. I expect anything necessary to put the ball into your playmaker's hands as early as possible to make it easier for Jaxson Dart to say, hey, here's some early success, and we can build from there.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Obviously, it brings way more of the run pass option type of plays into effect for the Giants, where those were the design quote unquote packages that they had for Jaxson Dart to begin with. Was he brings a different dynamic than Russell does, because now either we're going to have a QB spy in the middle, or one of the edge rushers is going to have to make a decision earlier because they know that Jaxson Dart can beat them with his legs if he has the run pass option. The other thing, Adam, that I'm looking at is like Theo Johnson. We heard how great he was in terms of athleticism. We heard how big of a body he was and what a weapon he was going to be. And in the Commander game, he had one catch for 5 yards. In the Chiefs game, he had one catch for 10 yards. The Cowboys game, they started featuring him a little bit more. He had 4 for 34. But we're really talking about 2 out of 3 of the games, he was non-existent. It feels like Jaxson Dart, with his ability to run, they're going to have to put a spy on him at least some portions of the game, because his legs are that type of weapon. If that's the case, there may be some of those in-seam routes, or the middle of the field seems a little bit softer. So to your point about Wan'Dale Robinson, I feel more encouraged about Theo Johnson being able to get it, just with the threat of Jaxson Dart's legs having to keep the middle of the field honest.
Yeah, I do find them interesting. It's funny, right? You go back to what is it? Yeah, I think it's is it week 2? No, it's week 1, I think, late against Washington, where Russell Wilson finds Daniel Bellinger down the scene, right? You're like, oh, Daniel Bellinger, that's right. Like, he's on this roster. And a lot of fans just in that moment, because Theo Johnson dropped a couple balls, it was like, well, remember Daniel Bellinger, like, this is what he does. Like, he does catch passes. I agree with you around, first of all, Theo Johnson. Like, we were told to get excited about this kid. So, I can see the results of being excited about this tight end. But I do wonder about how the game plan you want Jaxson Dart to run fits with Theo Johnson as a model of tight end. He's a bigger, I'm using Gronk, just a bigger size tight end. It's like when you used to see like Tony Gonzalez line up, you're like, God, that guy is larger than other players on the field. But Theo Johnson is also not necessarily the most nimble player, right? He shows like incredible like 5-point agility. When the passes come to him, he contorts his big frame in really impressive ways to be able to come down with catches. But is that going to be the easiest if you say, well, what I need from you, Theo Johnson, is to run a 5-yard out route because Jaxson Dart's going to drop back and maybe flash the run pass option and then throw a quick slant to the outside to a tight end. I don't know if he's built for that. So I wonder when we talk about some of those personnels, we saw them try to hit Manhurts. I think he won last week and was pretty disappointed in himself, but you need him in for blocking. Dan Bellinger. So I'm curious. Like, I want Theo Johnson to be a bigger part of this, and I expect him to be. I just wonder how you develop it because here's the other thing. The RPO only works if the defense, if two things. If one, the defense isn't sure which way you're going to go with it. And two, if the defense gives a shit. Because I think this game starts a very specific way. The Chargers are going to load the box. They're going to say, great, you want to run an RPO, those little plays we had, testing you out, Jaxson Dart, where you get on your hands and you try to, get to the edge for a few yards. I'm sure some of those are going to be successful. But they're going to start the game, in my mind, crowding that box. We're not going to have Tracy, so it's going to be Cam Scatterby, who had a nice game last week. It's going to be veteran Devin Singletary. Okay. So, Cam is going to have to grind his way to 3 and 4 yards as we do, that it opens up the possibility of those downfield. And then it's going to be on Andrew Thomas, that offensive line, to at least show, hey, we can get those protections off the edge, give a couple of seconds, and then it's up to Brian Daboll and Kafka to showcase that Jaxson Dart is going to be willing and capable to throw the ball downfield. I believe it is. But my biggest concern here is that the Giants look timid with Jaxson Dart in the offense early, which means you're down 7-0, you're down 10-3, you're down 13, whatever it is. Then from there, we'll see. Like, I expect them to let Jaxson Dart grip it and rip it here a few times. I don't think that Dable is going to be bashful about a finishing stat line that has a couple of picks maybe for Jaxson Dart, but maybe it also has a couple of touchdowns. Like, let him show everything that he can do. Use all the tools in the tool chest. But early, I wonder how they approach getting that defense off the line of scrimmage and allowing the RPO to be effective, allowing all these options, man, because whether or not Russell Wilson was timid and, a little bit too quick to throw the ball away, which he 100% was, there also were guys around, right? Like, there also were bodies around him in a lot of those moments, not in the red zone so much, but over the, in between the 20s, that came up a lot where it was, okay, look, I'm going to get hit. I'm just going to get rid of it. Jaxson Dart may hold on. It doesn't mean he's not still going to get hit, or it doesn't mean he's not going to get that pass. Will it be accurate, right? So that's my number one fear to talk about this game. It's a very good Chargers defense, and I think they're going to bring everything at Jaxson Dart to start, and then they'll react accordingly if he can handle it, if he can punish them. That's when we get to Malik Neighbors, get to Wan'Dale Robinson, right? And by the way, I think Darius Slayton too. I think all these wide receivers really matter. When that ball goes up 25, 30 yards, you better come down with it, because it's going to be the difference between being able to move the chains and starting to get a tempo, finding yourself in a lot of third and longs.
The LA Chargers give up 5 yards a rush, which is almost bottom 5 in the league, right? And so
Glad you brought this up. Yeah.
Because to me, I'm like, yes, I want to see Jaxson Dart throw the ball. I want him to get out of the pocket. But the Giants have to commit to the run game. And I actually do think that the run game is part of the reason why Jaxson Dart is in here. I'm not going to be shocked if Jaxson Dart gets 6 to 8 designed runs in this game, knowing that Cam Scatterby is going to get some runs, Devin Singletary is. The path to victory for the Giants, if there is one, is they are able to bleed the clock out, play the time of possession game, run against this Chargers defense, which you can run against, and try to consolidate the game so that it is a 17-14 game instead of a shootout where you have to actually go up against one of the better secondaries as well with the Chargers. So for me, I just think Jaxson Dart's ability with his legs is needed right now for this team, but especially against the Chargers, which might have been one of the main factors why they decided to do it now rather than wait a week or two when they're in New Orleans or other places.
Yeah, and I think the other reason why you do it now too, we'll talk about it after this game. I think you do it now so that you get some taste of live reps, and then when you get to New Orleans, and that is a very what feels like winnable game on the Giants schedule, you're ready for it. Like, you've already been in the live reps, so I don't think it hurts. And also, if you believe that he's the franchise quarterback, like, you got to go. Like, at some point, you just got to say, like, this is the guy, we believe in him. Let's roll. I agree with you. I think that running attack is going to matter. I'm going to find it interesting how much they use them. Let's talk about stat lines. What do you think it looks like the end of this game for Jaxson Dart? How many? Because by the way, just to round out earlier when we were talking about that red zone, if you go back and look at it, here's one of my biggest concerns, and maybe where Jaxson Dart has the impact. We talk about his legs. The Giants in those 25 plays out of 11 personnel, 34 total red zone, they passed 76% of the time with a league average 61. And that, Russell Wilson throwing it out of the back of the end zone, right? Plays that didn't look like they had real chances of success. So what do you think this stat line looks like? And have a very specific critique that has been levied. A lot of people covering and looking at the Giants over these first few games with Russell Wilson under center as from a play calling standpoint. But what does Jaxson Dart's day look like by the end of it? Is he throwing 25, 30 times a game? Or are the Giants settling into, like you say, 6 to 8 runs? We'll go ahead and have fine, hopefully successful pass plays. And we're more looking at it as, how does Jaxson Dart look developmentally in this game versus we go out from the start of it saying, how do we think we can win this football game?
I mean, listen, you and I came into the Dallas game being like, I can't fathom a way that this is going to be a shootout, given that our offense can't do anything, and then the Giants put up 37 points and still lost, right? I I don't see a world where the Giants just say, all the training wheels are off Jaxson Dart. We're going to let him throw it 35 times in this game. It feels like the Giants are making this move early to get him reps, but also because they think they can be more competitive. As we mentioned before, I think giving him touches, getting him familiar with being able to rush the ball and just feel some contact and things like that, I think are going to be important. I would be surprised if Daboll lets him throw it more than 25 times in this game, to be honest with you. My ultimate is,
Yeah.
I think if he can break over 175 yards passing, maybe get 40 or 50 yards rushing to keep them honest on the ground, like that to me is a good start for the Jaxson Dart era for the Giants. I don't expect him to outplay who is a top 5 MVP candidate on the other side of the ball and Justin Herbert. So the expectations are manage the team, don't have any costly turnovers, throw it when needed. Maybe 15 to 17 completions in this game would be more than enough for me to be like, okay, at least we're settling him in, and there's some promise in games to come.
And I think the other thing we talk about too is, the impact on this game. We want to talk about game scripts. And Dart having a great debut. It's also the defensive side of the football, right? I mean, listen, the Chargers have gotten off to a really strong start. We know that they've been more of a run first kind of team under Harbaugh, but then Quentin Johnston is kind of, coming around now this year, and you see some of these big plays, and we know the Giants secondary is susceptible. But I think point of attack match, right? Like they have a young, talented backfield. They're going to be looking to move the ball down the field. They've put up 27, 20, and 23 points, which is, by the way, like against the Chiefs, that's impressive. Against, say, the Raiders, maybe you think it should be this big and explosive. They haven't put up 30 plus points, 35 plus points, but their defense is so talented. Survived the Chiefs 21 points, 9 against the Raiders, 20 against the Broncos. I mean, what I will say is, even though I think the Chargers are obviously one of the better teams in the league, and we'll see how they end up. Their test is always going to come in the playoffs when it comes to Justin Herbert. But they have been scored on. I mean, it's not possible to have some offensive success. I think it just comes down to whether or not you believe the Giants defensively can get a couple of advantages here, shut down a couple of drives, and just put the Giants in a chance to have success, right? Give Jaxson Dart a starting drive from your own 40, not from your own 15, right? Those things matter. And whether or not I believe that Daboll will be aggressive in his play calling and wanting Dart to be successful, I do think he will look at those moments if you're backed up in the shadow of your own goal line and go, okay, I'm not going to have my rookie QB get pummeled in the end zone. I'm not going to, force him to make a throw that we think has a low percentage. So staying ahead of those sticks is going to matter a little bit too. Other things away from Jaxson Dart, then, as we talk about this game in totality and our predictions for what we think is going to happen. Hey, guess what? The Giants are going to have maybe a new kicker. A little thing happened on the way to week 3 football. The Giants had a kicker with an injury. Tell me if stop me if you've heard this one before. So finally, Gano, obviously he's, I think, 63 years old. It looks like maybe the hamstrings are just going to kind of give out on him. They go out and they bring in Koo. There's been some conversation. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Andy, who's been named the official kicker for Sunday. They've also been bringing along a young player for the last year and a half, potentially, who had a good camp. Those news and notes. Dexter Lawrence has a big brace on his one arm, so maybe he came into this season a little bit dinged up. What are some things we're hearing in terms of health for the New York Giants?
Yeah, so Graham Gano, IR stint with the groin injury. I mean, I think Dan Duggan of The Athletic said it. He would be surprised to see Graham Gano kick again for the Giants if either of the decisions that they make, whichever they go with McTominay or they go with Young Koo, like if either of them is serviceable, he would be shocked to see Gano back out there because this is two times in 2 different years where the Giants have been without a kicker because gets hurt the day before or in training. We just literally can't have that happen. Or it materially took points off the board for the Giants against the Chiefs and cost them a game last year against the Commanders. Just not something that you can do. You mentioned Dexter Lawrence. Obviously, he's got a big brace on his arm. He's looking a little bit injured. Malik Neighbors was out for a little bit this week, limited in some practices, but obviously expected to go. I think they were just monitoring his reps. It's good to hear Andrew Thomas. They're really ramping up the amount of practice time, reps he's getting. Feels like while he was on a pitch count maybe last week, he seems like he responded very well. He'll probably be closer to a full go. So the Giants are going to have the majority of their offense. I think Art Stapleton of NJ.com came out and said there's a real position battle between McTominay and Young Koo in terms of who's actually going to get out there for the Giants. So we're going to have to wait to see who gets activated on that. But yeah, Adam, feels like they're at relatively full strength given that they've made the change to Jaxson Dart. Andrew Thomas is going to be out there. Malik Neighbors looks like he's going to be good to go. So to me, there's not really that many excuses the Giants have in terms of like, hey guys, this is what the team is going to look like moving forward. And we need to see some progress from the 27th ranked offense in the league.
Yeah, 100%. Right. Like, here we are. Again, here we are, this team, this offense, and what it looks like. We can go ahead and let's hit the line. Let's hit the over under. We can do our predictions as well. I'm going to add in here, as we talked about, defensively impact have on this game. It's worth noting that Justin Herbert has taken the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 most sacks over the first 3 games of this season. They are a good football team. They are very balanced. They have won every single game that they've played. It's awesome. He's been sacked 10 times. I actually think, he kind of had, it reminds me of, San Francisco 49ers, Colin Kaepernick. When Justin Herbert runs, like when he gets in the open field, he has that gazelle, like straight line looking speed to him. You have to be aware of that with him. But they are susceptible. Like Geno Smith has been sacked 12 times. Kyler Murray, who if you watch, and by the way, he's played one more game now coming off a Thursday night, but he's a guy that when he gets bunched up in the pocket, he can't get out of there. He takes those sacks. Cam Ward, a rookie, 15. So if we're looking at this game for me as we get into the line, the defense needs to pull its weight here. Like it needs to be hey, what an opportunity. The rookie quarterback is starting. And if we can go and really hunt down Justin Herbert consistently, drive over drive with all these speed rushers we have, right? Then I think we have a chance to at least make this game exciting and interesting into the fourth quarter. Talk about the line, talk about the over-under. Where's your head at in terms of maybe some key impact plays?
Yeah, so the Giants are at home against those LA Chargers. They are 6.5 point underdogs at home. The over-under of the game is 43.5. About 70% of wagers are going in on the Chargers, and for good reason. I mean, if you think about it, it's a rookie QB against an undefeated team that has a top 5 potential MVP candidate quarterback at the helm with a competent coach in the front of him. So Adam, I mean, none of that is surprising to me in terms of where it sits. Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Well, it's the ambiguity. I mean, first of all, neutral site. This is a two-score game, right? It's undefeated Chargers. You have to expect it. It's a winless Giants team. The over/under is interesting just because the Giants have only scored points in one game, right? So, take away the Dallas game. I think we said this going to the Chiefs game where it's like, hey, the over is 44.5. You're like, okay, so the Giants give you about 9 to 12 points. And then I guess the other team, and that's pretty much what weeks 1 and weeks 3 have looked like. And the unders have been hitting those games because the Giants offensively looked a little bit inept. Uh, my agenda here would be that the Giants can extend drives a little bit because of Jaxson Dart's legs. And to your point at the top of the show, the Giants have been in the red zone. They haven't been able to score touchdowns. So there is a world where win or lose this game, that they do put up more points. So I think I like the. Hmm, well, it really depends on it really depends on what my predictions for this game, right? You take the over if you just think the Giants can score some offensive points, but the Chargers are still going to put them up here. I'll hesitate to say if I like the over under just yet, but the spread. I thought going into the Chiefs game that the Giants were going to keep it close. I took it in my pick'em league. I said, "Give me the points," and then it just slowly went the way that the Commanders game went. Does that feel like that's what's gonna happen here to you? That like, yeah, well, that was interesting, but if you can't score offensively, you can't stay in a game. I can look back to weeks 1 and week 3 and say, "Oh, if Russell Wilson had scored on a drive in week 1 and on a drive in week 3, we're at least talking about a one possession game, in the final minutes of a fourth quarter in both of those games."
Well, you even asking that question is part of the reason why Jackson Dart is now starting, right? It's like we could have been in these games. We didn't feel like we were competitive in Washington. It felt like it could have been a one-score game. If we had a kicker and Russell Wilson maybe converted one opportunity in the red zone, the Giants are in that game as well. So maybe there's some disillusionment that the Giants are competitive and should be winning to these games.
Like, shouldn't we all know? Shouldn't we all have known? Like, shame on us. When the Pittsburgh Steelers say, like, we're not bringing back Russell Wilson, and we're not even bringing back Justin Fields either. Like, we're not bringing back either of the quarterbacks that we had. Like, you and I always agree about, like, Pittsburgh is always consistent. They're always there. They always end up making the play, all that stuff. Like, shouldn't we have known that we shouldn't have brought it? And then reverse it. Aaron Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh and certainly looks like he still has something left. You go, right. Like, this is how quarterbacks should be evaluated. And if a good franchise doesn't want that guy, you shouldn't be jumping to bring him in. Sorry.
Well, and that's why it's so surprising to see Daniel Jones have success with the Colts because you're like, the Giants are a bad franchise. Like we think we the Colts are gonna be his reclamation project, and all of a sudden they're 3-0. The team's punted once, and he's a top 10 MVP candidate. Like go figure how that works
Yeah.
out. But but Adam, I think I am of the mindset that I am skeptical until proven otherwise right now. I mean, the
Oh,
Giants have given us very little to be able to sit here and say, nope, we're going in the right direction. This is the way of the future. Granted, this is Jackson Dart's first game. A rookie QB up against a Jim Harbaugh led team is one thing. Another thing is Justin Herbert throwing the ball all over the place against a secondary in the New York Giants that has not looked good, against a Shane Bowen defense that really hasn't looked great so far this season, is equally as concerning as Jackson Dart's first start. So for me, even if you could say, well, the Giants could run the ball, or you could say, well, the Chargers can't run the ball on their end, so that helps us. Like, there's just not enough there for me to sit here and find a way that the Giants are going to pull this game out unless Jackson Dart goes crazy and they let him open it up and he throws for 3 touchdowns. So for me, I'm already looking at this like I think Jackson Dart will have an okay game. I anticipate him making one rookie mistake. I think Justin Herbert has looked amazing, and I don't think Shane Bowen's defense is going to give him that many problems. So for predictions, Adam, I'm thinking that it's going to look
yeah.
slightly more exciting, slightly more mistakes with Jackson Dart that you're like, wow, I can't believe he did that. But at least we feel like we have a different dynamic at offense. So I'm going to go LA Chargers 24, New York Giants 13 in a very similar game to what it felt like with the Chiefs. And I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but until Shane Bowen's defense shows me that it can truly step up and not give up 20 points a game consistently, and until we actually see Jackson Dart out there, I just don't see the game script going any other way. But I'm sure you have a different opinion than I do.
Russell Wilson, in spite of that week 2 game against the Dallas Cowboys, has a QBR that is only better than 2 players in the league. JJ McCarthy, Cam Ward. In spite of that game against Dallas, he is the 3rd worst QBR in the league. Across those first 3 games, Russell Wilson only completed 59% of his passes. Yes, for a ton of yards. 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, right? Like, It was not, and how many sacks did he took? 7 sacks in those 3 games. He we know he wasn't good. That's why we're going to Jaxson Dart. But he was terrible. Overall, he was terrible. And what we always love about QBR is it takes into account red zone, critical moments, right? Big opportunities. Even though you say the defense does need to prove it, which they do. Again, I will go back to I think the Chargers are a very good team. I think they're a very efficient team. And I think stopping the run is actually going to be as critical as anything the Giants do, because that still seems to be a bit of an issue for them. But the reality is they're a team that's scoring in the low 20s. The only team that's put up big numbers against the Giants is the Dallas Cowboys, who are potent offensively and don't even know that there's another side of the football. So I agree with you that I think it's going to be right in that kind of range. But I think I'm going to lean on the side of that in the fourth quarter, there is a little bit of something special for Jaxson Dart. That when we were watching Russell Wilson kept going, well, we obviously know he's just going to throw a deep interception. Like that's the game plan. Bomb it out, have someone pick it off. So maybe something sexy happens there. In that regard, if you want to take the points in the Giants, they are at home. LA is coming across the country. So that that does help them a little bit to whatever extent. Take the points. I think the Giants can be within a touchdown at the end of this game. And I live dangerously, Andrew. You know my motto. I think that Brian Daboll, if he's worth anything as the head coach of the New York Giants, if he has any chance of still being a head coach after this season, my belief is that when he said, I want Jaxson Dart, that's who we go draft. He's my franchise guy. He said to Jaxson Dart on the phone on draft night, I'm betting on you. It was like, I mean, there was desperation in his voice. He was like, I need you, Jaxson Dart, to be that guy for me. I believe that there is a set of plays, that there is a whole package beyond the RPO. I think there are things that they didn't bother even showcasing in the first 3 weeks of the season with Russell Wilson. You are going to see against the Chargers on Sunday. Whether or not it ends up leading to a win, I don't know. But I think this is going to be a very different looking offense because we knew with Russell Wilson, it is hold up protection long enough to throw deep bombs. I mean, that's what the offense was. And I think that's because there was limitations to what you believed he was capable of doing for you. I think Brian Daboll has more confidence in Jaxson Dart. I think the team has more confidence to be able to run a full complement of routes when we talk about Malik Neighbors. Remember, Ed, they're basically running go routes with Malik, one of the best wide receivers in the league. And their thing is run real fast, real far. That's not, and I can't believe that Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll, that's the best they have in their mind. So I think we're going to see something very different on the offensive side of the football this week. I'm going to call for the New York Football Giants to win this New York Football Giants football game. And they're going to win that game 21-17. Hi, how are you? My name's Adam Armbrecht.
Wow. I mean, going out on a limb, you are really being the eternal optimist for the Jaxson Dart era. I mean, honestly, Adam, if Jaxson Dart comes out and wins this game, you would turn around and say, the season maybe isn't over yet, right? Like, it's not hyperbole to say.
The way, yes. Why say the Giants can win this game? Because if they win this game, and then you believe they can go win the Saints game, no matter what happens when you play the Philadelphia Eagles 2 times over the next 3 weeks, 2-3. And any Giants fan, if you said start of the year, 5 games in, you're 2-3, you go, heck yeah. Even if you end up being 2-5, right? And then 3-6, whatever the case may be, like you would have taken that. And if it comes at the hand of Jaxson Dart and what it could mean for the franchise, right? So yes, I am going eternal optimist because I want this to be the thing. And by the way, real quick, I'm sorry, long-winded long here. Hey, you jerk-offs that are flying planes over the stadium again on Sunday, like total. We talked about this last year, and I know you and I debated. It's like maybe John Mara finally John Mara doesn't give a crap about these planes. Nobody cares about these planes. The people that are flying planes are idiots. And it's on the day that Jaxson Dart makes his rookie debut for your franchise, and you're gonna go, these guys are incompetent, fire everybody. Like, just come on, go with hope. Who cares? What does it cost you for one Sunday from 4:05 to 7:30ish p.m.? Just dream a little dream that the Giants drafted the right quarterback, that Brian Daboll has just been waiting to have the right piece to make his offense work he wants it to, and maybe it could be a fun game. Like, God, sorry.
I know, Adam. The one thing I will say is the organization no longer gets any benefit of the doubt, right? So, like, if people want to,
Of course, no, yeah, I'm not saying that. Of course,
right?
like, yeah.
To me, it's like they have lost the plot so much from the medium Pepsis to the QB sneaks on second and third down to get better punting field position. Like they are not allowed the benefit of the doubt. So for me, it's like I don't think the Plains are going to do anything, but if it's going to embarrass John Mara to the point where there is a change, like go ahead, fly the Plains as all as you want. Go with your GoFundMe's, do what you need to. I no longer am giving any benefit to the doubt of anyone responsible, top to bottom, in this organization.
No, of course not. Forgot about the Pepsis. It really was an all-time low. Um, that being the case, the Giants are gonna take on the Chargers on Sunday at 4 p.m., 4:05 p.m. official kickoff. We will see how Jaxson Dart looks. I will say, and this isn't me, I'm not hedging anything here. It's just a reality of like what we'll talk about the rest of the year is, does it matter how Jaxson Dart performs relative to Brian Daboll? Because a lot of people have said, like, this is a lame duck head coach. It doesn't matter what they do, barring them going on a 7-game winning streak. Yeah, sure. But that he maybe is just kind of riding out the wire here, and it's going to be someone else ultimately that develops Jaxson Dart. That's a season-long narrative. But for this week, for this day, it's Jaxson Dart, it's Malik Neighbors, it's Cam Scattaboo. Like, it's the young core who have a little bit of swag to them that maybe some of those key figures in the Giants franchise past haven't had at these critical positions. Let's see what happens. Let's have some fun. And of course, we'll be back in maybe even talking over on social. Follow at One Giant Podcast, and you'll be posting up some of his betting lines, right? Things that he liked in fantasy. That had a pretty good start to the year, might I add. So yeah, throw down a couple shekels, as they say. Never, never trust me when it comes to fantasy. I am a man on a wire, and I literally have no clue what I'm doing. But until the next time, when hopefully we talk about a big blue victory, as Andrew Mackles would want, need, and nay, demand that people know.
As always, let's go Big Blue.